Hello, everyone, and welcome again to Who Doesn't Have a Podcast with me, Jerome Dowling, nostalgically taking up Burn With Me this week from beloved episode 42, because quite frankly, I am burning like you wouldn't believe. I don't know about you two guys, but let's get on to them. First and foremost, of course, we have our master in chain, Michael Priestley. How are you, Mike?
I'm very well, thank you, Jerome. I'm also incredibly hot. I couldn't think of a good Doctor Who pun, so I haven't got one for you.
And it's a very exciting podcast this week because we have a new face indeed, making her first appearance. One of my closest friends, but also one of the biggest Doctor Who fans I know. So without further ado, I'm going to let her take over. Her name is Frankie, and I believe she has a pocket watch on her.
I do, yes.
Oh, that's cool.
It is not
for one of many Doctor Who conventions that I have been to.
Oh. So are you a Time Lord in disguise then? Do you know about your Time Lord past, or have you just never opened it?
I've never opened that. I like to think of myself more as a villain.
On a scale of the Absorbaloff through to like the Weeping Angels, if you could, where on the villain territory do you sit?
I like to think of myself as dastardly, so Missy, probably.
Oh, nice. Yeah, very, very nice. But anyway, we'll come to all that in a minute, and we'll certainly come to the Rani, and in my case, Omega. But on a bigger front, how did you both find the series? Were you overly kind of pleased with what you saw, or were you disappointed? Let's go with Frankie first.
I had a fantastic time watching the Interstellar Song Contest, and everything about that episode would suggest that should be an awful episode. But no, watching Rylan float off into space to be brought back down again, I thought was fantastic. And it showed finally what I'd been waiting to see in Ncuti, which was just a level of anger that wasn't too hammy, and just the side to him was like, oh, good, he's going that way, he's going darker, and he's delivering it really well as well. And it just at the last few episodes before he sort of leaves, that was really disappointing, because he had been hammy all the way through for me, and I think that was a big thing for me. I like a bit of a darker Doctor. Christopher Eccleston's my favourite New Who Doctor. I like to feel like a real dark, terrifying presence when the Doctor's in the room. So if you're on the wrong side of him, you better run. That's what I want to feel. Didn't feel like that with Ncuti. But I did prefer him this series without Ruby. I liked Ruby's bits, storyline on her own, but I feel like their pairing was quite annoying. So that was quite nice to not see them together.
Do you make of kind of the history with Belinda? Was that something you found was preferable, or do you think it helped bring out those other sides of the Doctor you've been waiting to see?
I like feeling like Billie Piper made me feel, and so did, well, I mean, the characters like Martha up to Donna, and kind of with Amy not so much, but that kind of grungy, gritty noughties feel, and those characters delivered. They delivered their characters in such a realistic way. They were warm. They felt like real people, and that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to place yourself in their place. Like you are the companion. And you could relate to them. Like I wanted to know about them. I wanted to know how they were feeling. I really cared about them. I felt that a little bit more with Belinda, because she was quite, her performance was more on the side of naturalistic than I can't stand Clara. That kind of that kind of CBBC overacting. I am acting. I'm delivering lines. The camera is right there, and Ruby was quite a bit more like that. So that's why I preferred Belinda on screen. Yeah,
it's interesting. I think there was definitely like a a totally different atmosphere from like the very first episode of this series, just with the complete shift that Belinda brought. But Mike, what are your feelings, kind of not just about the companions, but just how has the series left you feeling overall?
In large part, I really enjoyed it. To be honest, I really liked the opener, which I think it was the Robot Revolution, which I didn't expect to like, because Space Babies was the last opener to a series we got, and I really didn't like that. But yeah, I thought it came out strong. I really enjoyed how they introduced Belinda. I thought that character as a companion made sense to me. I really enjoyed how they gave her a proper through line, which was like, we just need to get her home. It was nice and simple, and it made sense. So I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed The Well, that third episode, which, you know, is up there. It's like, I can't remember how long it is, like 45 minutes, but it's like a horror film. So I really enjoyed that, and I thought there were some excellent jump scares, and that performance, like all of it was amazing. And well, with what Frankie said, the one that I was really kind of on paper not looking forward to is the Interstellar Song Contest. I thought, come on, why are you doing this? But what they actually did with it, shooting out a ride in that confetti cannon back to I
love that.
It was so good, wasn't it? Like, but those moments are like, I think, what differentiates Doctor Who from like other massive sci-fi shows. And I didn't not like the finale, to be honest. I thought the finale was good. I was just kind of left with a little bit of a low feeling afterwards, because I did think that this was supposed to be a springboard to bigger and better things, and and so I just, that's kind of tarnished my kind of opinion on the whole thing. But in large part, yeah, I thought we had a string of really solid episodes of Doctor Who, which is good.
Yeah, I think I agree with you with most of that. I definitely came into this. I mean, when we were doing like the podcast episode before the Robot Revolution, we were really anxious, I think it's fair to say, about how this series was going to go down, with everything that was kind of happening externally and like the future of the show. And I, like, on the whole, was pretty happy with most of the episodes, just in terms of like the quality of them, in terms of like, I agree with you. I think the simple narrative, the focused storytelling of like Belinda trying to get home, especially for the first few episodes, really kind of gave it a nice springboard on which to jump off and to kind of work with further. And I think there were a lot of kind of very sort of classic Who moments, such as the confetti cannon, such as the big moments, whether it was a big monologue or whether it was a kind of a reveal or a returning villain, or like in The Well, for instance, when it's revealed to be the midnight creature, and just having that moment of like, it's coming, but the way it's all set up to kind of have that.
Can I just, because we watched that together, Jerome came round. Well, in fact, you didn't even come round. We left our friend's birthday to come home and watch Doctor Who.
Legends.
we fully left.
We'd made enough of an appearance, I think, but
like, we're just kind of
go and watch Doctor Who.
Kind of there halfway down, just going, do you think anyone will notice?
Everyone's like, this isn't 2006, 2007. Why are they sneaking off to go watch Doctor Who together?
Oh God, we didn't tell anyone.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, and we watched it with my parents on the sofa. And when the reveal came, Jerome had told me all day, "Oh, it's the creature from midnight." Like, really? That's big. If it is, it's like it is. It 100% is. He was so serious about it all day. And then when the reveal happened, he was sitting on the opposite sofa to me. I looked and I could just see him like this.
But did you see someone right behind him? And then you looked again, and there was no one there.
I wish you had that darkness about you, Jerome. But I don't know about with that episode. I did like it. Because it was darker. I like it. I think horror is when I most like Doctor Who, and I think that is really true to what Doctor Who was when it started. It was a horror. I think they should go back there again, but we'll get to that later. But I made the mistake of letting midnight roll on after that episode, didn't I, Jerome? And
yeah,
it's just so. I mean, it was just such a good episode. It's so good. And what's good about the episode is how the monster works, whatever it is. We still don't really know what it is.
It doesn't
And
have
I
a name.
thought, I thought it was going to be that, but like the next stage of it. And because we had Rose Ayling-Ellis sitting there, and obviously there was then like sound as a sensory thing that could be played with, and I thought this is going to be great. Surely, like that's what they're going to use the boards that they had, which had the were communicating with her. Like there was going to be a next stage to an already awesome monster, and it kind of like didn't need to be that monster. Could have been a brand new monster because it did nothing in terms of the behavior of the original episode. And I think I then found that disappointing because of that, because it wasn't executed as well as the first one, because it wasn't as creepy what he was actually doing but I think if they hadn't revealed it to be the monster from Midnight, I'd have loved it even more, because like, oh, it's a brand new thing. It's doing its own thing. It's fine. It doesn't have to be if you're not going to do the same thing, because everyone fell in love with the taking over of the speech and stuff. That's why it was scary, but it didn't do that.
It was a bit of a weird shift, I thought, as well, because all of Ncuti's antagonists up to that point had either been sort of new villains or villains that kind of had this sort of mythical sort of element attached to them. So I understand why the Midnight creature would maybe kind of line into that, because it does have this sort of supernatural ability that maybe other conventional Doctor Who villains don't have. But at the same time, it did feel odd, like in hindsight, in terms of like going back to like a very well regarded sort of classic New Who villain after having all of these kind of new elements. And I'm not saying that's they should do that, because it's nice to kind of have that as a refresher, like to go back to a villain that we've seen previously. But I think this leads me on to something I was going to talk about. I don't know how you guys feel, but it's like, I feel like there was a lot of things I enjoyed in this series. There was a lot of potential. There was a lot of really kind of interesting ideas. But I just kind of get this sort of nagging feeling that quite a few of them just haven't been followed up on. And maybe that's because they're sort of threading for future series and for future storylines. But I just felt like in the present moment, it kind of made it a bit weak. Like there are
Easter eggs that haven't been followed up on.
Yeah, like Easter eggs, I suppose you could call them that, or just kind of like plot points that felt like they were going to go somewhere either within their individual setting or episode and then didn't, maybe because they're waiting for like later on. But like the two that really caught my attention, you were leading onto it there, Frankie, was the creature from Midnight in the well, where it kind of sort of suggested at the end, well, it's kind of free to go where it wants now. Like, and it's sort of that, I suppose you can end it on that, of course you can, but it just kind of felt like there was something underused there. And the other one, obviously, for me was Susan. Now, I appreciate with the Susan element, that is something that could, very much be threaded kind of going on. But at the same time, like, Carol Ann Ford is not a spring chicken. She's not going to be around, do you know what I mean, forever. So I'm just kind of going like, well, this is the thing. And I'll be honest, like, just from a fan's perspective, I'm significantly underwhelmed by that if it's just a cameo, like really underwhelmed, because she is like one of the most important pieces of Doctor Who lore. Like, if she isn't such a good companion in the first series of William Hartnell, I don't think the show goes on for as long as it has. And I just think it's a character that would have been so interesting to kind of, I mean, sure, have her regenerate if that's possible, that's fine, but like, I just feel like it was left so undercooked for me that in hindsight, I find it quite troubling. But go on, Mike, what do you think?
Do you know much about the reshoots? There's like rumors about reshoots, quite heavy towards the end of this series. There's a leaked image of Ncuti Gatwa and Belinda and everyone like partying at the end, and apparently this was all but confirmed, because the actor who plays Poppy, her mother, came out and basically went on Instagram that like they did film this scene, because Poppy's a child actor and her mum chaperone had to be there. They did film this scene, and apparently Susan was supposed to be in the corner, and that was kind of like the thing at the end. Like, Susan was watching the Doctor and his friends, so that kind of confirmed that Ncuti Gatwa wasn't supposed to regenerate. The Susan thing was going to get picked up, and all of these threads were going to sort of lead into this like hopeful Disney Doctor Who renewal. And the Billy Piper thing, and we'll probably talk about this later, but the Billy Piper thing was apparently incredibly last minute as well, because they didn't really have this regeneration worked out. So what you're saying, Jerome, they probably did plan for longer running threads, and they probably will pick up the season thing again wherever and whenever Doctor Who appears again. But yeah, so
I don't know if they will though. Just because it felt well, I mean they might, but it felt like a thing that initially was going to be very unique to Nshuti's Doctor, and they were kind of leading in with links of, you know, not knowing where you're from and not knowing your own heritage and kind of being abandoned, and there's very strong links to Susan there. I mean, yeah, it might be picked up for sure, of course. I just think like, and the reshoots probably had a big part to do with that. But even in the episodes themselves, like even the Interstellar Song Contest, she featured, and then I'm pretty sure she featured in episode 7. And did she feature at all in the final episode?
No, I don't think she did, but I think it was meant to. Yeah, it was meant to at the very end. Yeah.
I think you're right, Mike. I think the whole, what I consider to be a mess of a finale was due to plans changing very quickly, and I think that shows. And I think you're onto something there. That's a shame. I'd have liked to have seen what the point of, Susan bad wolfing her way across the series, and then
there's a theory as well that makes the finale make a lot more sense, where it was supposed to be, so instead of bringing in Barada Septu as Belinda, they were supposed to have another series arc for Millie Gibson's Ruby.
I'm done with Ruby.
But doesn't that kind of make more sense then, in terms of what happens in the finale with the Doctor and Belinda have this like child that's like made out of wishes or whatever, and Ruby's an orphan, so and Ruby's the only one that can remember Poppy. So I think the rumor is that the whole series arc was supposed to be for for Ruby instead, and Poppy would have been Ruby and the Doctor's imagined daughter, which I think is a little bit more neat. It also explains the 73 yards thing about how she can remember an alternative 2025.
Right. So let's talk about that, because that was one of the big things for me. Like, why does Ruby remember? Why have you made a sort of another companion have this stonking ability for some reason that means that they are the most impossible person in the room? Do you have a theory?
I think the theory is 73 yards, like she lived through 2025. Yeah. So she's still kind of got this like this kind of thread of a different year that no one else can remember. Yeah, it does make more sense, doesn't it? So and they do kind of still have it in the episode, because she is still the only person that can remember Poppy. I just can't help but feel like it would make more sense if Poppy was supposed to be her daughter, considering she's an orphan, and it's all, there's been all this timeless child stuff. It's all been about parentage and, where you come from and all of that stuff.
I was all right with Ruby in this series in terms of her involvement as a character and what we learn about her. I actually enjoyed a lot more of the work in this series than the first series. But interestingly, like, something that we've brought up a lot, and it'd be interesting to get your thoughts on this, is episode length and kind of the amount of episodes in a series. Because I think, like, the more I've thought about it since this series ended, when you look back at like Eccleston, Tennant, Matt Smith, where you get those big kind of 12, 13 episode sort of series arcs, I also think something else that I hadn't considered was the art of the filler episode. And I feel like when you've got like 7 or 8 episodes in a series where it's got to be like plot narrative, we've got to get to like the reveals, we've got to like just everything's got to be streamlined to kind of serve the main plot. A lot of character development goes by the wayside. And I think actually one of Russell's biggest skills as a head writer, but when he was doing kind of, especially like the Tennant episodes, was not all, I should stress that, not all, but some of the filler episodes are some of the best episodes in Doctor Who. And I think it's those episodes that really allow particularly companions, but also other characters, to just shine. and to develop and actually for you to grow a relationship with them. And I just feel like we'd take Ruby, you could take any of them, but I'd take Ruby in this instance. Like, I just don't think we got to know her. She just felt like a sort of generic AI kind of invention of a companion. Of what, like if you gave it to ChatGPT and just write a companion, like it would just formulate these ideas about a companion. That's how it felt anyway. But I don't know, how do you feel about, like, do you feel like the shorter episode, like the shorter series and like the 45-minute kind of format has hampered Doctor Who as a whole as it's gone on?
They're still 45 minutes, aren't they?
They're still 45 minutes, but when you put it into like a 7 or 8 episode sort of series span, do you think it kind of hampers it?
A good filler episode is fantastic. Midnight. I will even, minus the Ablorvlog, it's lovely to kind of watch these this group come together who share a common nerdy interest and form a band to play ELO songs. That's lovely. And it's nice pacing for the series because there is character development that happens in it, but not necessarily completely focused on the Doctor and the companion. They learn things from like really well thought about characters. They think about the additional characters a bit more in filler episodes because it's normally centered around them, like Sally Sparrow. And that's nice. Blink is as the filler episode.
Or like Family of Blood and stuff as well. Just like where you get a two-parter and you just go. That's some for me. Me and Frankie were just saying before we started this, like series 3. I've been in like series 3 nostalgia mode for like the entire day, and there's just so good episodes in that series, like that just stand out for all the right reasons. Mike, what do you have? Your thoughts changed at all on it?
I either want a longer series or I want them to do what I've wanted to see for years since they did Torchwood Children of Earth, is make Doctor Who like a 5-part mini-series and have one story with the same characters, just, then flesh it out like that, and also make the episodes longer.
To be fair.
You want that?
Yeah. That's like do you remember, did you watch Torchwood Children of Earth?
Yeah. God, that ending.
Yes.
I rewatched that in lockdown. That is not something, with lockdown moods that you want to watch. I've completely forgot what he actually does at the end. Jesus.
Pretty brutal. But I guess what I mean is that is when they did that, when they did Torchwood Children of Earth, they dropped the episodes consecutively. So it was like Monday evening, Tuesday evening, Wednesday, and it felt like an event. I think it graduated to BBC One from like BBC Three for it as well, so it felt like a proper thing. And what I've always kind of wanted from Doctor Who is like, I don't know, have these like crazy gaps between series or do whatever, but if you can bring it back as like an event mini series that feels like an event, I think that would be amazing for it.
Have you watched the Orville?
Is that the spoof, the sci-fi spoof with? It
started out as a spoof. It is Seth MacFarlane, but then they kind of dropped so much of the spoofiness and just made it straight up a fantastic sci-fi. And watching that, it kind of is a really good example because it kind of does that. Longer episodes. I guess those are more standalone, I guess. But it does show you what you can do when you really have the time to flesh out a good storyline in a longer episode. You should give that a watch, and anyone should give that a watch. And it's sort of maybe the direction that I think Doctor Who should go. It kind of, when people say about Doctor Who, oh, they should give it a rest because they've run out of ideas. No, there are ideas. There are definitely ideas because people are doing the ideas. Really good sci-fi. But I guess like I'm not a die on the hill with 45-minute episodes because I enjoy that.
Well, it's interesting because like Children of Earth, for example, it doesn't entirely follow the sort of the format of like classic Who, but it does somewhat in the sense of like having one story and one kind of serial through. In terms of like the sci-fi element, though, because I agree with you, I think Doctor Who is at its best when there is a horror element incorporated into the backbone of the narrative. I've always thought those episodes were the best. I've always thought that they kind of
those are the fan favorites.
They are the fan favorites, massively. How much involvement do you think Disney have had on the whole gods and myths and monsters thing?
The thing is, I know everyone says that they only have the distribution rights, but I don't think pumping that much money into anything, Disney of all companies who are extremely strict and tight with and protective over their brand, is going to say, okay, we won't say a word, and okay, Russell, like whatever you say. I just don't believe that they haven't had any influence.
Well, I think like the classic is Lux, kind of an animated sort of classic cinema sort of antagonist who's kind of very sort of jovial, kind of family friendly, but also not. And I actually, strangely enough, I actually thought that was one of the best bits about this series. I thought Alan Cumming was like, his voice performance was amazing. It looked amazing. Like, I really like
Alan Cumming is great.
But you could clearly see the influence there on that sort of story and that kind of motive.
I feel like Lux is the flagship, like, epitome of what a Doctor Who Disney partnership could be. But I just felt like maybe when the partnership was announced or conceived, there was more excitement for that kind of thing than what we got.
Speaking of villains that may or may not have had an influence by an external factor, I want to give Frankie the chance to talk about the Rani, because the Rani is obviously a huge part, not just of this series, but of the entire arc.
Yes, happy to talk about this. I really, really loved Mrs. Flood. Every episode I was, even if I hadn't enjoyed the episode, I was excited to see the few seconds at the end of Mrs. Flood. Anita Dobson, she is a queen, married to a member of Queen, but she's the real queen. I was really disappointed when, after the reveal, and I was like, that's brilliant that they've made Mrs. Flood the Rani, because she's been a sinister presence across since we first met her, so since the previous series as well. And they completely tore it all away from her, like, at the end. And obviously the bi-generation thing happened again, and what we saw was obviously definitely like an homage to classic Rani, and I kind of enjoyed that for a bit, but I really would have liked to have seen Anita Dobson actually do the Rani. And I don't think that this is Archie Punjabi's fault, because, again, probably with a load of rewrites and a massive pivot at the end is what I feel. I don't think that she really got given the script to sort of deliver like a knockout performance. And I was really disappointed with what they did to Anita Dobson.
And also, if you add up the amount of time that Archie Punjabi was actually on screen, what is it? Probably like 10 to 15 minutes in like different scenes. That's not enough. It's not enough time to really like get to know a character.
After so much build up, so it was 2 series worth of build up for that. Just felt like I just didn't care. There was too much going on. It was just such a mess, and I don't think anyone's none of the actors' fault.
Well, interestingly enough, Mrs. Flood's version of the Rani is still out there, right? Don't they leave it? Doesn't she? She just does one. So
open-ended.
There is potential. I'd also say, sorry, briefly, just because Frankie brought it up. Do you think bi-generation? I think bi-generation is an awful idea.
I hate it.
I hate it. I think it's because it rips all of the tension out of the show. Like, let's say the 60th anniversary, like, you build up to David Tennant's 14th Doctor regenerating again, big emotional moment, and then he just carries on. He's just alive, and it's the same with Mrs. Flood. And have we seen another bi-generation, or is it? No, it's just those 2 we've seen, hasn't it?
They should
feel a bit like
park that, because they're like the Thronglets in Black Mirror. Like, there's just no, there is no tension. You've hit the nail on the head.
How do you get behind it? Yeah, like, if and I think Russell T Davies said at the time when he introduced bi-generation that his theory is that every regeneration now, by generation happening, has been rewritten as a by generation. So Peter Capaldi
No.
wakes up in the TARDIS after regenerating, and it was the whole idea of doing the Whooniverse, so you get different cameos. I don't know, but yeah, he did say that on one of the commentaries, and I was like, doesn't it just destroy any of the weight of the story?
I don't think
it does. Like that whole, it's in a really emotional thing. We've seen him. It is like dying. It's supposed to be like dying, and no one seems to care that they are by generating. It's like, oh yeah, hello.
I guess just carry on living then.
Yeah,
but it's really emotional. First time round, 10th Doctor, when he says, "I don't want to go," and it's the whole thing of the story. Like, can you just imagine now with By Generation him just like splitting into Matt Smith and it being like, okay then, all right. Guess none of that mattered.
Do you think it's partly because the viewership has changed though as well, where it's like they're trying to like introduce it, they're trying to keep, it's like you're trying to keep a whole different fans, you're trying to get new fans, but equally you're trying to like keep the legacy fans sort of attached to it. Because I agree with you, I'm not a fan of By Generation. I think it was an interesting thing to happen on the 60th because it was something we've not seen before, and if they'd have made that the token thing, because I like the idea of him sort of being a therapy doctor and being like, this has happened, this has never happened before, because you are literally at the tail end of your, do you know what I mean, regenerative
capacity. Yeah, your mental capacity is going to explode.
Like this is a one-time sort of like universal thing that has occurred because the universe is almost being like, kind of giving you the warning signs for like if you keep going in the way you are, it's curtains. How do you guys feel about the regeneration and yeah? I
mean, I don't even remember it. Like I just remember being really annoyed at seeing Billie Piper's face.
Billie Piper's face just superimposed onto Ncuti Gatwa's body, I think.
Mostly because they made her look really goofy, and I love Billie Piper.
It did look goofy.
Yeah, like
it's probably because it was filmed 5 minutes before.
Yeah, that's true. But if it's Rose, and she's obviously not the Doctor. She's not. But if it's Rose, that's not what Rose is like. So if she is anything, I think she is probably Bad Wolf / the moment that visited John Hurt when he was trying to make his decision about pressing the button, because that would make sense because the TARDIS is currently sort of falling to pieces, and I think Ncuti himself just really had a good time, and I think that was coming from Ncuti more than the Doctor. Like, thanks, but this has been a lot. I'm gonna do some theatre now.
Yeah,
I think these actors need to stick around longer. Realistically, how many episodes has he had? Like 2 Christmas specials and
not many.
16 episodes. Like, it's nothing really, is it? So
yeah,
they just need someone to like I don't think it'll be Billie Piper. I do have a fundamental problem with the new Doctor being a past companion. It feels like recycling the same elements. Like I can't really get behind it too much. But having said that, if you are going to do it with any companion, Rose might be the best option because of the staring into the time vortex and the bad wolfness of it all and all that stuff. Can you see it being a special celebrating 20 years of this new era of Doctor Who with Billie Piper and then David Tennant again? Like,
yeah, I can.
Could you get behind that? Because it's so soon for David Tennant to come back. Like, it would be ridiculous. But could they do it? Could they make it good? Would it get people excited again to see those two together?
I think it can.
I think there are other people. There are other actors.
I think like the show. The thing is, like, when there's been, the show has always respected its past. Like, you look at all the specials through to classic Who to new Who, with like the 20th special, or like the one where there was the 5 Doctors where Tom Baker didn't actually choose to turn up, and they like sort of superimposed scenes that he had previously been into the special. Like, there's always been elements of like them respecting the past, but the driving force of the show has always been to move forward. Best moment of the episode, in the final one for me, was Jodie Whittaker.
Same.
Yeah.
And just that 4-5 minutes, what was it, was just brilliant, having the two of them together. And I was like, and that was unexpected as well. Everyone's expecting Missy, everyone's expecting Chris Eccleston, David Tennant, someone like that. And the fact that it was her and that it was relatively unannounced or unknown, I thought was brilliant. And it just worked. But we're going to talk about the Timeless Child. Obviously, it's changed Doctor Who forever. I'm on one side of this fence. You know which side of the fence I'm on. I'm not a fan. Mike is a fan. I would say that I'm growing to.
Hello.
I'm growing to.
Because I don't know anything about story or character.
Appreciate it more. But what were your feelings? Like, did you love or hate it to begin with? Have your feelings on it changed? Do you feel like it's expanding in a way that is like interesting? Or do you think that it's just this giant elephant in the room that now can't be removed and up?
I think it explains everything.
Mm-hmm.
Everything about the Doctor. It explains so many things that make sense. It could have been explained without really camp Cyberman Time Lord standing around with Sacha Dhawan screaming. I think that was that everything is so camp here.
That is such a good little snapshot of his performance. Just him just screaming everywhere. Just stop screaming.
But yeah, it explains everything. So it's never quite explained why the Doctor took the TARDIS in the first place. For me, it's not good enough to just to say, oh, I felt like I didn't fit in. But he's the only one. There's no one else that we know about. The Master's just like a bit fucked. Are we allowed to swear on this?
Yeah.
A bit. Okay.
Yeah, swear city on it.
Yeah, he's just the schism fucked his mind up. So like that's his story. But the Doctor, like he feels beyond misplaced. And if you watch him whenever he's come up against the Time Lords, which is quite often, he is on another level of intelligence to them. Their intelligence, I think, comes from being around for so long. So they have a lot of experience and they've seen a lot of history play out. But in actual sort of intelligence and working things out, he's miles above them because he's a different race. And I also think because the High Time Lords obviously are aware of this secret and that his mind has been wiped, there would have been so many opportunities if he was that much of a thorn in their side, which he is, that they just kill him. But they're not, because I think probably they're thinking, well, regeneration itself stems from that guy. So if we suddenly lose that power because it's been made like in a science lab on our planet, then that's the only link we have to get it back again. He's the only one with the original DNA, so we can't kill him. And they haven't. They would have by now. And I think subconsciously those memories are making him explore. Why does he keep going to other planets? Why does he pick the planet Earth, which isn't that interesting but has people that look like him? He's trying to find his race. He doesn't realize it, but he has been the whole time. And what this means is that we don't have to keep seeing every now and again Gallifrey come back, delete Gallifrey again. It's in a pocket of, how many times have we seen that? Now we get to explore a whole other possible universe that we haven't seen, that he's fallen out of, or she when she was time child baby. There's so much. That's sci-fi. As a sci-fi fan, you should be so excited that there's like so much more sci-fi to play with now, rather than the same shit that we keep seeing over and over again. I'm so done with Gallifrey being destroyed and then not destroyed again.
Oh, we've been talking about this for how long?
That might actually be the worst part about that two-part story. Is like they've set up the next 50 years. They've been like, oh, we're going to find Gallifrey, and then they just reset exactly back to where it was very rubbish. However, leading on for what you said, Frankie, so I actually think the Timeless Child is actually quite clever. Because, like it's it doesn't actually do away with anything that you think you know about the Doctor. He is adopted by the Time Lords. He does call himself a Time Lord. Like, it hasn't actually done anything. It's just kind of it's just added on. It's just added on.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go, Jerome. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah, I'm gonna. No, I to be fair, I actually really like the way you put it as like trying to find their own race, in the sense of like, why do they keep traveling about? Why do they, why is there the constant exploration factor? Like, I think that is actually a really nice way to put it. I think Russell made the right call by not doing away with it, and actually like leading on and kind of expanding upon the original idea, because I think it would have done more harm to the legacy if they'd have just wiped it completely as an idea. I just didn't. I really didn't like the way
he wasn't going
was
to, because he can see that it's. Why would he wipe it? It's not a bad idea.
I know, like, it might prove to be a very good idea. I just, at the time, I just felt like it harmed a lot of canon and a lot of legacy. And I also think that I really like the introduction of the fugitive Doctor and Joe Martin, but I just felt like the idea of it kind of being there being no end point or like no beginning, and yes, in terms of like being able to explore your origins, it definitely opens up that narrative, which would be the exciting thing to now go and do. And it leads to that age-old question, which Stephen Moffat never really answered in the form of Doctor Who with that entire arc. But I just felt like, in terms of like, when you link it to stuff like By Generation and kind of the amount of different sort of personalities and characters, and there just being loads of different Doctors and loads of different parallel universes, for me, it just felt like the whole thing was quite exhausting, and it took away any sense of threat, or it took away any sense of kind of finality, or that this character could potentially be in danger. Right, I think we are gonna call it there. But this has been a very special episode of Who Doesn't Have a Podcast, with the debut performance of Frankie Taylor. Thank you very much for coming on. Hopefully we'll have you back very soon. Mike, good to see you.
Nice to see you, mate.
Thanks for having me, guys.